What's going on, guys? Today I want to talk about Bitcoin. Should you buy it? It's currently trading at $23,000. Before we begin, I've never done this before. I think I need some kind of disclaimer that this is not financial advice. I don't know what I'm talking about at all. I'm an idiot on YouTube. Don't listen to me. And I'll probably put something on screen just to reiterate that point. But Bitcoin, $23,000. Little bit of backstory. I actually pulled up my Coinbase purchase history. So I've been into Bitcoin for quite a while now. I bought my first Bitcoin on April 24th, 2014. It cost me $488. I bought one full Bitcoin. Basically, I just did recurring purchase orders on Coinbase for the next few years. I was working as a computer engineer, so I was like kind of into technology. I heard about Bitcoin. I thought it was changing the world. I've always been kind of like skeptical of government and the fact that they control the money. So I like the idea of some kind of monetary sovereignty outside of government. That always appealed to me. That was the first thing. So it was kind of like a mix, like my libertarian leanings combined with my love of technology. It was just like a match made in heaven. I think a lot of people kind of have that epiphany. I have been accumulating some over time. I think that's a good strategy to use, is just kind of slow accumulation over time. So in this video, it's not really about understanding Bitcoin and, developing some conviction about it. You have to do that on your own, or maybe I can share my conviction in it in a different video. In this video, I specifically just want to talk about, at this price, $23,000, recording this on a Monday. You're probably going to see this the day after, on a Tuesday. Should you buy it for that price? So this is kind of what we're dealing with here. Basically, the last big run was the end of 2017. Got up to about 20K, about 19,700. Then we had a little bit of a winter period here. No one was really talking too much about it. This would have been a good time to be buying it up. And now we are obviously at another crescendo. I don't know if that's the right use of the word crescendo, but we're back at a new all-time high, 23,000. So sort of the dynamic at play with Bitcoin, I've been through, I guess, like 3 big run-ups like this in my life of holding Bitcoin. And let me tell you, you sleep a lot better at night when you're not concerned with making money in the short term off of it and really just like trading around and trying to find the right price. You sleep so much better at night. It's so much less thought if you're just automatically buying X amount per month, per 6 months, however often you want to do it. Just set it and forget it. That's really the easiest way to do it. So a good way to do it could be using Coinbase. That's the most approachable way for most people in the US. I even think now you can do it on Cash App. I've actually been buying some on Cash App every couple months. The thing with the recurring automatic payments is you pay a 1% premium a lot of the time, which isn't a huge deal. You can buy stocks and Bitcoin right now in Cash App. That's another really easy way to do it. You can set up recurring orders on Cash App too. The dynamic with Bitcoin though is, since there's a fixed supply, there's 21 million of them. Once it starts running up, people get really frenzied and they start thinking like, this might be the last time ever that this Bitcoin is going to cost 23,000. I might need to get some now, or else I'll just never be able to get it at this price again. That is a thought that runs through my mind, to be honest, too. I'm like, is it going to come back down? Like, you never know when it really just takes off for good. If we're looking at history, and not that history always repeats itself, I guess some people say it rhymes. If you're referencing the last run-up, it got up to almost 20,000, then it dropped down to a little above 3,000. The history of it has been that whenever it goes up, it usually doesn't come down to its previous low. So like it'll probably never touch 3,000 again, but honestly, who really knows? Anything is possible. It's very volatile, which is why I guess dependent on your conviction kind of dictates how much you should really allocate towards it. So for should you buy Bitcoin at 23,000, I guess there's two people. There's people that have it and there's people that don't have it. So to me, if you don't have it, I would probably say it's a good idea to get a little bit. How much? You probably want to just dollar cost average in over the course of some time. I think the risks are greater having zero than the risk is of maybe having like a few percent of your net worth in it. If you don't have any, pretty much buy it at any cost. That's sort of my first thought. And it doesn't have to be like a full amount that you want to eventually aspire to. It could just be like a little starter position. That's totally cool too. See what happens over time. As you become more proficient in using it and like transferring it, you gain confidence in it, and maybe you'll want to accumulate more. Really, you have to develop your own conviction. You can't borrow conviction. That's a recipe for disaster. If I had 0 Bitcoin, I would buy some at 23,000. That's me. If you already have a pretty decent allocation, so like me, I have a pretty good percentage of my portfolio currently in Bitcoin. Am I actively accumulating? No, but on pullbacks, I'll buy a little. So on pullbacks, I will buy a little bit more, but it's not like I'm, mortgaging the house on any of this stuff. This is still a very risky asset. Some things that are starting to happen that sort of lead me to believe that there's really only one path and it's up. So this is obviously research you have to do on your own. But the fact that there's a lot of institutional people buying it. So there's MicroStrategy, which is a publicly traded technology company, and it's been putting all of its treasury funds into Bitcoin, and it's sort of a meme lately. And essentially they now have over $1 billion, 1.125 billion in Bitcoin, average purchase price of about 16,000. They have over 70,000 Bitcoin now. So a lot of people are investing in this stock as a way to invest in Bitcoin indirectly. So that's sort of some of the dynamics that are starting to happen, which is people with a lot of money are starting to allocate some of their resources towards Bitcoin. And then there's also a Coinbase IPO coming soon, which is Coinbase is like the most prominent, I don't know if it's the highest volume, but it's definitely the most respected and trusted way to buy cryptocurrency. It has been for a really long time, just really like above board. Everything they're doing seems to be by the book. And that is coming soon. So that I feel like will stir up a lot of interest in Bitcoin. And really anytime it hits a new all-time high, it usually goes much higher. But this is just like anecdotal. Like no one knows. You always got to remember that. Usually the thing that everyone thinks is going to happen is not what happens. So right now, I'm like just a natural contrarian. Right now, everyone is saying they're giving their Bitcoin projections, 100,000, 400,000. Some people say 1 million. It's just like, it's wishful thinking. It's mostly nonsense. Like if it gets above 50K in 2021, I would be really surprised. I think it's going to be more of a slow, steady climb with some drawbacks too. And the last big dynamic at play is this thing. It's called Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is a publicly traded, sort of like an ETF, I believe. It's a trust. They hold Bitcoin and people invest US dollars. They buy shares of Grayscale, and by proxy, they're invested in Bitcoin. So Grayscale holds the Bitcoin for you. This is not something I would do. Like I'm a believer in you don't own the Bitcoin unless you have the private key. This is something people used to say. It's becoming less so popular, but I'm big on like you should have control of your own Bitcoin if you want to hold it. So as you can see, they're buying Bitcoin basically weekly. It's continuing to grow. So this is having a lot of upward pressure on the price. You would have to imagine at some point this sort of evens out and stops being such a catalyst. Yeah, I'm a little bit more pessimistic on the short term than a lot of people seem to be. A lot of people seem to think that just like once we pass 20K, it's to the moon. I have been reading Twitter a lot more. It's not something I typically do, but you do get a lot of really good, smart people sharing their takes on stocks and crypto and stuff on Twitter. So I've been trying to engage a little bit more and just see what's going on. You can pretty easily gauge like who are the smart people, who are the dumb people, right? You can get a good picture of that when you're following people on Twitter. And I'm a big believer in sort of outsourcing your brain to other people. So like if you build up a level of trust in someone and they say something, then you got to weigh all of the variables, obviously. But let's say someone I have vetted, I've read 10 of their books, I listen to their podcasts, I read all of their blog posts. If they say this is a good company, I'm going to keep my eye on it. To me, that's a big indicator of something I definitely do want to keep my eye on. Whereas someone you trust a little bit less so, maybe you put less weight on their opinion, and you kind of have all these opinions of different people built up over time. And that's a good way, without actually like digging into the financials of a business or something, which you should do yourself too. That's a good way of sort of narrowing down the amount of work you personally have to do. In spending some time on Twitter, I think it's pretty obvious that the big Bitcoin people, they're obsessed with price. They're obsessed with the value of Bitcoin going up. It's their only obsession. Every time Bitcoin crosses a new $1,000 threshold, 24, 25, 26, whatever, they're just like, Bitcoin just cost 25K. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we can all see that. We can look it up on the charts and CoinMarketCap and whatever. But like, that's not what I want the smart people that are invested in Bitcoin telling me. I want them telling me like adoption, like these are all the new institutional investors that are buying Bitcoin. That's the stuff that actually matters. The price doesn't really matter that much in the short term. I don't know. So like, I guess I never spend time on Twitter, but the last few weeks I'm like, realizing these Bitcoin people, they're not the smart ones. I used to think they were the smart ones. That's why I was early on, I was like, man, all these smart people are working on Bitcoin. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, a lot of the Bitcoin skeptics seem to be the smart ones. Although I will say pessimism sounds smarter than optimism. That's like something I kind of live by. So when people are really dunking on something, it's easy to come off sounding smart. The real optimists, they always seem kind of dumb, but they always are the ones who end up making the money. So it's kind of like a balance of those two factors as far as just browsing Twitter, trying to get some kind of sentiment indicators on this stuff. Overall, just summarize, I would say, yeah, if you don't have any Bitcoin, it's probably good to have a little bit in there. The risks of having none are far outweigh the risks of having some at too high of a price, in my opinion. FOMO is definitely a very real thing with Bitcoin, more so than any other asset there is, I would have to say. And when the price starts ticking upwards, it's really hard not to get wrapped up in this. Like, this might be the last chance I ever get to buy Bitcoin at $23,000. Like, what happens if tomorrow I wake up and it's $30,000? You can't really think like that. You kind of just got to live with your decisions in the moment. Right now, is Bitcoin worth $23,000? Probably not, honestly. But does that mean it won't go to 50,000 in a month? No, it could easily do that. It could also go to, like, that's the thing. I don't know how low it can go because there is so much support these days. I feel like the downside has almost been entirely taken out of the equation. So, like, could it go to 15,000? Yeah. Could it go to 10,000? It seems pretty tough for me to envision a world where it goes back to 10,000 because there's so many people now, I would say, kind of waiting on the sidelines for their chance to get some at a cheaper price. I don't know if a lot of the institutional buying just never ends up happening like people are expecting, then yeah, it could reasonably go down to 10,000, 5,000. There's no real parameters. Whatever you think makes sense, just throw it out the window because really anything can happen, and it has happened in the past. So yeah, I think to sleep good at night, just set up a recurring buy order. That's the best way to do it. Once a month, buy X amount of Bitcoin. I would do it in US dollars. So once a month, buy $100, something like that. Set up a recurring buy order so you sleep well at night. Don't check the price all the time. The price doesn't matter. It's the long-term price that really matters. And that's sort of my take on Bitcoin. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. The big thing, though, is when you hear Bitcoin, you shouldn't have this emotional knee-jerk reaction. So if you're watching this video right now, a lot of the times it's easy to just immediately hear Bitcoin, turn off your mind. Either you're pro or you're con. Try to open it up. Maybe just give it one more chance with an open mind. Rethink things. If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, maybe look at some of the pessimistic bear cases for it and see what you think of those. You shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction. You shouldn't identify as a Bitcoin hodler like so many people do. Don't identify as things. Be open-minded. Be willing to change. That's the video, guys. Comment below. Let me know what you think.